Head over to thebestsongever.com and purchase our new hit, Together Again. It is a cover of Smokey Mike and the God King. That's Jeremy Boring and Michael Knowles. And with your help, we will smash our way onto the Billboard charts. I've got bad news for you. Okay, we can sit here, talk about the importance of journalism and fear about what's to come in 2024. But the prophet of doom, a psychic, has predicted cyber attacks, natural disasters, and a Russia-China alliance. Well, the prophet of doom says so. I mean, look at this guy. He knows. So that's it. That's it, boys. Pack it in. You may as well just flee to El Salvador while you still can, because we're here.
Who is this prophet of doom?
He claims to see into the future. And he says that, there's going to be, he's got some serious predictions. Big floods will engulf London and Europe. A new pandemic in Australia. And President Vladimir Putin will trip off this mortal coil.
Coffee with Craig. That's the name.
You know what's really funny is like we're kind of making fun of this dude and everything, but what if all this stuff actually came true?
Well, the global cyber attack, that doesn't actually feel like very specific of a prediction for me. It's like being like, there will be an election next year. Like, we know all sorts of countries will have elections next year. I wish they would have some more specific details. The flood in London is kind of a bold choice.
I think, right, that is a bold choice. I think the best way to go about this would be to claim that a man from the future gave you access to information about what was going to happen. And that's what is going to happen, unless, because telling you changes history, it doesn't happen, but then it's not my fault. It's your fault, actually.
It is interesting. That is a nice caveat to always be like, well, because I tried to save you, now everything's going to be different. I can't rely on
Yeah, that was, do you guys remember John Titor? It was a meme thing in like the 2000s. A guy online posting on forums claiming to be from the future and showing pictures of like light bending in a time machine. And I think he was saying that by like 2008, the U.S. would be fractured into 4 different countries and stuff. But of course, he was like, however, that may not happen because I've altered the timeline.
Oh.
There were some really interesting and very intelligent things that he said that made people.
Is he the one who said,
think, wow,
he traveled through time to like 3 specific points in time? He came back multiple times to warn people about things.
Look at this. He's got a, look at this. John Titor and Time Travel Zero are pseudonyms used on internet forums between 2000 and 2001 by an individual claiming to be an American military time travel from 2036. So you're saying that in 13 years we got time travel? Their post discussed various aspects of time travel and described future calamitous events, including a global nuclear war. The uniform inaccuracy of their predictions and inconsistencies in their explanations has led many to view the story with skepticism. Wait, that was it? I kind of think if a guy goes online and says I'm from the future, that instantly disqualifies it from being true. But okay, like maybe there's a 0.00001% chance some time traveler is telling the truth. It was a hoax created by Larry Haber, a Florida entertainment lawyer, and his brother John Rick Haber, a computer scientist. The claims have never been verified, however. Interesting.
Oh, okay. I
So
think
how they know it was a hoax.
I've read a lot about doomsayers throughout the history of humanity, and it's actually more common than I think people realize. It's so easy to say that the worst thing is going to happen and to make the claims about all the risks and how they're all going to fail, and that's going to cause the end and the failure. But I think it's way more likely that things are going to march on. It's just a matter of staying still, surviving, having community and things.
I'm with you on that. I think I'm more of an optimist. I think what a time to be alive. What a time to make a difference right now. And the truth is so powerful. I know it's very corny and cliche, and people are probably going to laugh at this, but you have a dark room. There's a little flame. It lights up the room. The truth has that power. It just does, and I think it'll ultimately win as long as people are courageous enough to say it. And historically, in like the Soviet Union, these other countries, they couldn't say it. They had to live by lies. They had to pretend. Even though they knew the truth, they didn't want to say it. And as long as we have the courage to say it in numbers, I think we'll be okay.
And also the ability to preserve it, which I think storing data in orbit, like we really need to get away from these centralized servers, or at least expand into decentralized storage. The truth can be, unfortunately, on the internet, tweaked in real time. The truth, I call it.
No, that's true. I mean, we talk about this all the time. People like Netflix will take scenes out of shows if they decide they're unpopular or incorrect. It's weird that we edit the content that we have. It's like you're unable to preserve an original document, which is crazy. It's terrifying. Do you have any white pill predictions for 2024? Anything particular you think positive will happen?
White pill. I like that question. That's a good premise. As I said, I think the last couple weeks of 2023, or any precursor, I think you're going to see whatever if there's corruption or fraud occurring, Like, if there's a conspiracy somewhere, I think that conspiracy will be made public for us to see. Now, we could argue whether that's going to make a difference. That's a different conversation. So if there's voter fraud, and I don't know if there's going to be enough of it, but if there is, I think we'll see it.
In 2024?
Yeah, in other words, we'll be able to see the fraud happening on the inside. The whistleblowers will come public. They'll reveal it on video, incontrovertible. And now whether that's going to be shocking enough to people who like, for example, hate Orange Man,
He's
bad,
very, very bad.
Then I don't know, but I think we'll be able to see it in a way that we've never seen it before, and we're seeing it right. As I show, we're going to see it in a way we've never seen it before. I've never seen anything like it.
Are you familiar with the apocalypse from the Bible? Like it's a biblical prophecy.
Vaguely.
Entering they call it the end times. Who knows what that actually means, if the calendar's just resetting or something. But it basically means apocalypse means the great revealment. That things are being revealed. And so what do you think about things like neural net, where people are plugging into machines and we can share our thoughts?
I don't know anything about that.
Well, it's just Elon's way of making brain-computer interface a little better than using fingers. You can use your thoughts to communicate on the machine now.
I feel like neural net would be the worst thing for whistleblowers, right? Like if the government or whoever was plugged into your brain, you started thinking, maybe I want to say something about what's going on wherever I
Well, there were reports
Well-
today, Ashley St. Clair reported that the American Airlines, one of the airlines, was forcing people to download something onto their phone.
The pilots,
to track whether they're talking to James O'Keefe or not. And I just tweeted out, just go to Walmart and buy another phone and just download Signal. But there are efforts like this, but even that, in these other countries, no dissent was historically no dissent was permitted at all. And now you're seeing the opposite effect. Like it's almost, Orwell feared the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned out in a sea of irrelevance. So the question, Tim's point, I think, was on point, which is that our audience have become so segmented. How do you convince the people that don't agree with you? Don't just play to your audience. Play to the people who don't agree. And to the white pill question, still believe that if you expose the truth in such a way, it'll convince the people that don't agree with me. Like, for example, the story on Pfizer or BlackRock or even voter fraud. The problem with the voter fraud I've heard from the right is that I don't think anyone's ever actually proved it. I think it's all circumstantial evidence. I mean, can you name a case where we've really actually proved incontrovertible evidence of massive voting fraud? I haven't seen that. I haven't
massive.
seen that.
That's I guess
enough to swing
massive.
an election. I personally haven't. I mean, there's different ways that they coerce, propaganda, the media, but you know what I'm saying? I think that there's going to be people on the inside in 2024 recording this stuff, and there's nothing they can do to stop it.
Hypothetically, would you support like a technology that just blows everyone's minds open so that we can read every human's brain?
I didn't even thought about the implications of that.
Would you
Yes.
support that? Why?
Because we're going to destroy ourselves if we don't.
You
That's
don't think
my
people
thought.
have the right to the privacy of their own thoughts?
Well, no.
Why?
Not anymore.
I feel like
Look
that's
what we've
so
done to ourselves.
authoritarian.
Look what people did with that. They secrecy and destruction and slavitude that they've done to humans. It's horrific.
I don't like a world where I'm obligated to let anyone read my mind. That sounds terrifying.
I just think that they thought that it's your mind is like kind of out of like our thoughts are not our own.
It's our mind.
It is our
Yeah.
mind.
It's the global mind.
I mean,
It's the
obviously
world
we
mind.
have
It's not-
autonomy
it's
as bodies.
My
but,
little pony. It's our little.
But
pony.
these,
Well, not
like,
really. If it's not my mind, it's not my body, right? I mean, where do you draw this line? Also, like to my point before, that would completely blow up a whistleblower system, right? If your thoughts were public to everyone, we would never have anyone come forward because theoretically they would immediately be imprisoned if they even thought about saying, "Hey, I should report this to someone."
But the corruption would never happen because if someone tried to ruin the
But
system
who is
with like
managing this? The
the
corrupt
whole
government?
species, the entire species would be like policing itself at all times.
Kind of. Whoever's on the top of that structure would be policing it.
I don't think there is a top if it's all
No,
connected.
I don't think it's a good thing, but I think Ian presents a possible future that we've actually talked about on the culture war. The way I describe it is with AI, with Neuralink and all this stuff, what eventually happens is humans will be treated like single cells in a multicellular organism. So take a look at single cells, right? They're all running around doing crazy whoozits and whatnots. They're eating stuff and making more themselves. They're independent in and of themselves. Multicellular organisms, all the cells have clearly defined roles. And within the multicellular organism, like each and every one of us here, sometimes there are rogue actors. They want to be free. They want to be free and they want to do whatever they want to do. And what do we call that?
Cancer?
Yes.
Disease,
and what do we do to cancer?
Pathogens. Usually
No.
we consume them with white blood cells.
We destroy them. And so in a future where we're all neuralinked and we're all being given our roles and to each according to their need and, from each according to their capabilities, what ends up happening then is this nightmare dystopia where you rip the Neuralink out of your neck and you're like, I just want to be me. And then you're hunted down by law enforcement who are all AI linked mindless drones. And then they destroy you, liquefy your body, and convert you into resource.
But I don't think you'd ever want to disengage from the species.
Cancer exists.
I mean, that's true. And maybe what I'm saying is I'm looking at stripping humanity of joy and pain and love and hate and all these things that make it so wonderful but awful to be a human. But at the same time, man, those kids pulling cobalt out of the mines in Africa where people are just like, no, let's not look at that. Like, come on, man. It's like how many thousands of kids are getting poisoned right now, clawing at that stuff for us to get our cell phones.
And yes. And now, do you weep for the skin cells that die and are flecked off your body? In an AI neural net world, when your brain is plugged into the machine, you'll know all about it, and you will not care. The people who are mining the cobalt won't care either. They'll just be the dead cells flaking off into the wind.
But I feel like we would be working out of our way to make sure humans don't have to suffer through that stuff if we were all one unit.
If your brain is linked to a neural net where everyone is like one hive, they wouldn't be suffering. There would no longer be a you. They would be mindless drones.
I don't know if they'd be mindless.
They'd be mindless.
I don't think we have to worry about this prior to November 24, correct?
I think you're right.
I think let's take it 1 year at a time because there's a lot going on.
You want to answer these big philosophical questions
well, no,
with us?
it's a fascinating Pandora's box, but to get back to this coming this is the last show of the year, right, Tim?
This is the last show of the year.
So a truly free press empowers people to make decisions for themselves. And that's what this movement is all about. I mean, you have the press is putting things in simplifications and stereotypes and obfuscation and all types of carefully woven tapestry of words that obfuscate. And then you just have Elon Musk's X and whistleblowers. And this is all about empowering people to make decisions because they have access to information they previously did not. And it's the lack of transparency in the world that is the advantage to the evil. So the theory, the white pill, is by making the world more transparent than it's ever been. Not mind shit. I don't even know about that. That's a metaphysical thing that I have to sleep on that. But let's just take it to the next level. Just having access to inside of airlines, inside of the DHS, inside the IRS, inside the FBI, if those walls could talk. Imagine if the American people could see that and hear that for themselves. Imagine that. I actually think that the whatever the outcome would be the correct one. But right now, people have no idea what's happening, and we're debating facts. It's the greatest tragedy of modern society is we debate facts. Why are we debating facts? We shouldn't be.
But we've made so many things subjective, right? They shouldn't be. But there is a whole bent of like, I mean, I'll bring it up every show, but look, the gender stuff, right? Saying, well, gender is different than sex, and this is why you can feel this way, but actually this is
that's one thing. I think that there's economic incentive to focus on these kind of issues that divide people. But
so wouldn't that be true for anything that is a fact that people try to manipulate? They probably have an incentive to do so.
Corruptive, coercive power of the federal government. The weaponization of the federal government, innocent Americans. I think these are winning issues, and the majority of people. I also think chopping off private parts off little boy, that's a winning issue. 90% of people think that's wrong. I think if people could see and hear the stench, the rot for themselves, that's why I'm a white pill guy. Mm-hmm. Because I know it's going to happen. It's already happening.
And you have people who come from inside and come out and tell you, hey, I want to talk about this because I think it's wrong. That must be a very uplifting experience.
It's a heavy experience. It's heavy. And actually, Tim, one of the things I've learned is that, we were talking about this off air, is that it's hard for, I got to be careful who I surround myself with.
Oh yeah.
After what I've been through, and I've got all these people contacting me, I got to make sure people on my team close to me, I can trust them.
Are people possessed?
By parasites, yeah.
I believe so.
Look, the stuff I've learned about your story, the stuff I've experienced, it feels like one day a demon enters their brain and takes them over.
Dude, I think they're literal parasites in your gut. I'm about to do some combo. It's this toad venom, and apparently you puke up parasites and they just come out. Luke Rukowski has a We Are Change video from 7 years ago.
I think there's much simpler ways. The combo stuff is about like experiencing death or something.
Yeah, but also a purge. It's a purge of this shit.
This
that's
is what you're doing
controlling
for
you.
Christmas, Ian? No.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ho, 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 baby. Yeah, take me there. No, I'm not doing it
I'm
shortly
not into
after
the
or
weird
something.
hippy dippy
I think,
injecting
Tim,
yourself with
what
frog
I've
venom.
learned is my fight and many fights like this, it's almost like a fight against human nature. It's almost like a fight against self-interest, for goodness or for truth or for, not betraying your conscience. And there's a lot of people out there the world is governed by people pursuing their own self-interest. So if you're going to run against that tide, you better make sure the people who are around you share those values, or your partner shares your values. If you're going to be on a mission against self-interest. And I think that's what it's going to take. You mentioned the founding fathers. Was their lives, fortune, sacred honor?
So blood treasure and sacred honor.
Blood
I think is what they
treasure.
said.
And they did that for each other.
They were risking their children.
Their children.
These are guys who were wealthy, had families, and they could have said, look, if we remain loyalists, the king will take care of us, and we let everyone else burn. Instead, they said, I will stand with the people of my community, even though they had landed gentry. And they told the king to screw off.
Ben
And they
Franklin-
felt their children were at risk either way, right?
They said, well, what future will I leave for my children?
Yeah.
Ben Franklin lost his kid. His son William refused to ever speak to him again because his son was a loyalist. He wouldn't leave the.
But
the
this is such a
England,
modern
and Ben was like,
experience.
I got to do what's right.
Right.
This is my own son.
I think we all know people whose families don't speak to each other because of politics, right? I know people who are like, if you voted for Trump, I'll never speak to you again, right? Like, this is something we still experience today. But if you believe that your country is at risk, if you believe the future of the people you love could be damaged by an outcome, don't you feel morally obligated to act?
William Franklin was imprisoned by patriots from 76 to 78, and he was the chief leader of the Loyalists in New York City, organizing military units to fight back on the side of the British. He went to exile in Britain and lived in London until his death.
Ben never saw him again.
Crazy.
That's a wild sacrifice.
Sometimes doing the right thing and the hard thing are the same thing. I'm looking at a tip right now. I can't tell you what it is or who it is or where it is, but it's big, and I get these every 10 minutes. Quote, I don't know if this is major news, James, but I thought I would just do the right thing. And it reminds me of a quote by the big tobacco whistleblower, Jeffrey Wigand, 1990s, asked by Mike Wallace, why are you doing this? He gave up everything. He goes, because it's right. He said, because it's right. So there are we could all agree that that's a very tiny fraction of humans who would do that and say that. Therefore, Tim, my fight is a fight against human nature in many regards. And you said demonically possessed. When you're fighting against, and we all have demons, right? And every single one of us, unless you're a liar, we all have things that we're ashamed of, perhaps that we've done. But if you're fighting for good, what's going to happen when you're fighting for good? You're going to be faced with, Tim, you're going to be faced with bad people doing bad things and saying bad things and demons, you could say.
When you say right and wrong, I feel like that's should always be up for debate, because like transparency for the sake of transparency, I'm not into anymore. I've considered it throughout life, but like national defense weapons programs like the Manhattan Project, we could not, if people had blown the whistle on that and given the specs to, we talked about this at Turning Point, if they'd revealed open source the data for the nuclear bomb and Hitler got it and built it first, we'd all be speaking German.
Hang on, you, the guy who just pitched that all of our thoughts should be public,
Well,
are not into transparency for transparency's sake?
If you could flip a switch, maybe, but yeah. There's some things that where you need.
I'm not following.
That's a good point. Thank you.
But the journalist there's a book written about this called The Custodians of Conscience. The Custodians of Conscience. The information revealer forms the moral values by releasing the information and testing and affirming what is and what is not moral. You realize that by going, oh, I call my company OMG. Oh my God. Like when the Pfizer guy is saying we make fake things to lie to customers to make money, or BlackRock saying we control the world, we bribe politicians. Okay, that's wrong. And that's the kind of role of transparency, is it not? To test and affirm what is and what is not moral by revealing information that shocks the conscience. You're the custodian of the public's conscience.
They're gonna, like, quantum encryption hacking is a big technology. Like 2028, we're gonna start seeing people be able to go in and like open up the last 20 years of your bank records, like everyone on earth, their bank, like, and so is that conscionable to do? Is it conscionable to do it just to some and not to others?
But do people need to know that it's happening is the question, right? Do people know that that's occurring, or should they know that that's occurring?
I think so, but sometimes, yes. In that instance, yes. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes there are things that are happening that if people know, they panic, and that could do more harm than keeping them in the dark.
Then that's the balance that you have to strike as the publisher of the information. Some things should not be. Some things ought to be kept secret. But I think you derive your sense of morality through the reporting process, and the public changes their sense of what is right and wrong based upon whether it tugs at their conscience. The word is conscience, I would say.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.